Hello everybody, welcome to Percussion Axiom TV. I'm your host, Tom Burritt, and this is episode number 88. Today we finish up our long series on John Serry's Rhapsody. It's Monday of PASIC week, which means the performance that I'll be playing on Thursday is just days away. I'm super excited to be able to play the whole thing for you, especially those of you who've been following along episode by episode here. Go back and catch it from the beginning. If you're seeing this for the first time, hopefully you have time to do that before Thursday in Indy. So we are almost there. Today's Axiom really has to do about transitions and the importance of transitions. Over the years I've learned that sometimes they're overlooked, especially as it comes, we examine what it is we're supposed to do as performing musicians, meaning that we're supposed to communicate music, communicate what the composer writes, not just from a pitch standpoint, but from an interpretive standpoint of the form. Identifying transitions is the first step, of course, so we've done that throughout, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then setting up the big moment. In this case, we've been through this really long development section that just seems to never end. And finally, we get back to the recap. So to help us get from this long-winded, highly emotional series of development sections here, Serry gives us this really amazing transition, one of my favorite transitions in any piece of music that I've heard. And so we really have to latch onto that, capture what's there, pace it just the right way, so bam, when we get to the recap, it's a breath of fresh air as we get the return of the A and B themes, of course, which is what you get in a recap. So we've talked a lot about sonata form, and so if you want to follow through that through the beginning, maybe this will make more sense, so go back and catch those earlier episodes. But let me just talk you through the rest of the piece today. It's going to be our last episode on this series. So we've been through most of the development, and now we just got to transition into the recap. And Serry does this with two ways primarily, the two themes. The first one is the rhythmic theme of just 3. There it is. In the right hand, we see it on this octave, and then the chordal triplet figures at the tail end of the phrase. And then the second part is the first theme A, in the left hand. And so Serry gives us that. What he does, he gives it 2, 3, or 4 times in a row, what I just played for you, on top of each other with the right and left hands. And so we start here, with the 3 in the right and the left. Here's a 7-note figure in the left hand. Slightly reorchestrated with the 9th and the 6th. Going to 16th notes in the left hand. There's the 3 in the right. Tritone. There's the 7th there in the tritone. 3. And then hammers home the 3. Nice interval there in the left hand. And then right there through the big, huge multi-retard, we get the recapitulation. So other things besides the rhythmic motive and A theme, really this is all centered around A minor, which we could definitely refer to as dominant in D minor, which is the home tonic of the whole piece. So we see this connection not only from a formal basis, but from a tonal basis as well, meaning back to the Romantic era. So that's the big transition. I'll play all this in context here in a little bit like we've been doing throughout the series, but that's this fantastic, really effective transition. And it's really how well I set up this transition is going to determine a serious amount of momentum towards the key point where the recap starts. So hopefully there's a breath of fresh air as we get into the recap. All right, so we've already talked about the A and B themes. Go back to episode 2 or 3, somewhere in there. Serry does something a little unusual, meaning the recap usually starts with theme A. So instead of getting this right away, we get actually the B theme, which is this. So right after that transition, we get the B theme first and the A theme. So he does a little switcheroo there and gives us the B theme first, followed by the A theme. So the A theme, the A theme, when it does come back, is slightly differently orchestrated, meaning that we've got this sort of big downbeats, slower, and then he adds this little octave thing in the left hand, which didn't exist in the first part of the theme as far as the accompaniment goes. He's getting that really from the development section, this section here, this time transposed here. So he's throwing a little bit of something from the development section into the recap, actually, which is sort of interesting. And then we get the same phrase that we had at the very opening, getting us out of the A theme, making that transition from the A theme back to the theme, B theme, and all of this cadence stuff all centers around A for the whole last page, and then we finally get that last big lick into the end. So that's a very quick walkthrough of how he does it. So the big key differences after the big transition is, of course, the switcheroo from giving us B theme first, just the same orchestrated as the beginning, and then the A theme second. Quite a bit differently orchestrated, slower tempo, thicker texture, bringing that little idea from the left-hand ostinato in the development section. And then we get the final push to the end, centered around dominant, of course, before the big low D cadence. So that's a nice transition into the last thing I wanted to cover before playing this whole section for you. Some of you in comments have been asking about a couple things, so I want to address those real quick. I've been taking some things down. You know, this piece was written in the late 70s, 79, 80, and back then, of course, low A was really the most available instrument range, and that's what it was written for, and that's the instrument that Lee Stevens was playing at the time. So what I've done, I've taken the liberty of a few different places of actually utilizing some of these lower octave notes, hopefully in places where it makes sense. Obviously the very last cadence makes a lot more sense to sort of end on these big octave Ds down here rather than here where it's originally written. Gives it quite a bit more of a sense of finality. We can see here too that as we come down, it makes more sense to follow that line all the way through to the bottom rather than bringing it back up to the D. There were several other places where I did the same thing. The big moment at the end, instead of the return of the A theme that's originally written here, obviously this is going to make it grandiose. It says grandiose there. This is going to make it sound much more grandiose if I bring it down here. And then just drop down that low G and D. So in situations like that, just to sort of build on what he's trying to create musically, I've taken the liberty of taking a few things down. I'm not really adding notes as much as I'm just displacing them for the general effect of more resonance, bigger sound, aiding the idea. There's a couple other places where I've done the same thing in the development section where it just makes sense that you can just tell the way the line moves down the instrument that if he had the G or the A flat, he would actually use those notes. So not in a lot of different places, but in certain places I've taken those liberties. So certainly you could do a lot of different things and probably be okay with that. I know Lee Stevens has a working version of this also that utilizes some of these low notes. So that's the first question. The second question was left in the Drums to Shatter forums. I'm less sure that I know what, I think it was Dan. So Dan, if you can clarify this a little bit, he was asking about bar placements as far as voicing goes in sections. For me, and I've covered this in some of my other videos and some other PA TV shows, it's really all about efficiency. If I can play into the end, if I can play in the end of the bar and feel I can get a good sound there by being precise, I'm very, very, very careful about hitting the edge, that's where I'm going to do it. Just because it means less movement this way, which I find to be a fairly awkward movement. Other than that, it doesn't have a lot to do with voicing as much as it does just efficiency of movement overall. All right, so hopefully I cleared up those questions for you guys. Thanks so much for your comments. I'm going to go ahead and just play the very last part of the piece all the way from the transition to the recap to the end of the piece just to kind of put an exclamation point on this. So here we go. there you go. There you see the ending. It's a little hard to do that in context or out of context, actually, not having played everything before that, but you get the idea. So you can see how Serry do that amazing transition, gets us back into the B theme first, then the A theme, and then quickly gets us through the end of the piece. And there you go. There's the end of Night Rhapsody. So here's the end of our series. You guys, thank you so much for following all the way through this. It's been a lot of fun for me. Please, I will see you at PASIC. Those of you who are going, even if you're not there, it would be so great to get PASIC trending on Twitter. So all you have to do there is every time you tweet something, just put the hashtag, even if it has nothing to do with PASIC, just put #PASIC11. #PASIC11. Hopefully you're talking about the convention. If you're there, I think they're going to be posting all the tweets that you're talking about. I already put them on the PAS webpage, so you can see that there. If you're not there, you can go. If you're not in Indianapolis, or certainly if you are, you can click on the hashtag inside any tweet and see what everybody's talking about, sort of nicely curated for you there. So let's get PAS and PASIC in general trending on Twitter, and then the whole world knows that there's 5,000 drummers in Indy. So thank you guys so much. Today's question of the episode is simple. How important are transitions? Do you think they're underrated? Talk to me about what you think about that. If our ultimate goal as performing musician is to communicate, then obviously transitions are hugely important. So I think they're underrated. Be curious about your thoughts. I'll be at the Maltech booth on Saturday at 10 a.m. Friday's going to be kind of a nutso day, like lots of stuff going on. But please, if you see me there, just come on up, say hello. I'd love to talk to you, especially if you've been watching the show. And that's today's show. Thank you guys so much for following through me on this, and we'll see you next time.